grandparent.
Sorry, what?
So you need to get up to
said it was Dave
McKinney. Say, I'm Dave McKinney.
I think, Mr. Chair, I started the YouTube stream and recording, so whenever you're ready.
Okay.
Get started.
Looks like we're good. Good afternoon. It is November 5th at 3:30 p.m., just a little after 3:30 p.m. This is the regular meeting for the Transportation Commission. First item of business, I'll call roll. Tracy Hopkins is absent. Ryan Lancaster.
Present.
Stephen Lewis.
Here.
Allard's here. Tricia Matthews. Ryan Leslie.
Here?
Brian Hall. Here. David McKinney.
Here.
Charlene Peterson. Mark Wastall. I think Mark gave a note that he was traveling this week, I believe.
That's right.
Luke Kavanagh.
Here.
John Martin.
Here.
Bonnie Tisdale likewise had given an email that she'd be traveling this week. Rhonda Gilbert, that our substitute, and you're Brian, right?
Brian Parker, yes.
Thank you, Brian.
And Mr. Chair, Lisa Aitkonen for Tony Tisdale.
Oh, okay, Lisa. Maybe you just showed up on your own, but we'll take a substitute. And Brian, thank you, sir. And Lisa. Miranda Carson from the school district. Great, thank you. Second item of business is the adoption of the agenda. Any deletions, additions, comments? Oh, excuse me, before we get to that, Tricia, has been our practice, you're our newest member to the commission. So we'll give you a few minutes to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself, if you would, please. I apologize.
Tricia Matthews. I've been a resident of Idaho since the mid-'70s. Lived all over Ada County, portions of Canyon County and Boise County, and was an employee of the Transportation Department, ITD, for 20 years. From the mid-'80s to 2005, and served there in many capacities, from maintenance to project development, project design, worked with right-of-way, and then the last 10 years worked over in the operations annex at the headquarters office as a statewide coordinator for all traffic control related things, except maybe signals. I put together their access control policy. And I'm a technical writer. And so I'm retired now and living here in Meridian for the past 3 years.
Well, welcome.
4 years.
I think you bring some good skill sets to the commission. Any other commissioners want to say anything?
Yeah.
All right, very good.
Welcome to the commission.
All right, adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Number 3, approval of minutes from September 10 and October 1. Let's take up September 10. Any additions, corrections? I have a motion to approve the minutes from October 10, or excuse me, September 10, excuse me.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we we adopt the minutes from September 10th as presented.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Do I have a second?
Second that.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. All in favor of adopting the September 10, 2018 minutes as written? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Mr. Hood, I'll sign those. And then the October 1, 2018 minutes.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. List.
not that it's a big issue, but my last name is spelled wrong. I don't know if that matters. Caleb's not the first. It happens all the time.
All right, so, well, let's get that corrected on both of them, right?
It's Leisle.
L-E-I-S-L.
It happens all the time, Caleb.
Sorry.
So Commissioner Leslie, we've already approved the agenda and the minutes with it spelled wrong, so you're just going to have to change your name at this point.
I'll fix that for next month.
Okay.
Well, I took roll for someone else, or no, I got it right on today's roll. Okay. With that change, so noted for September 10th, October 1 minutes. Mr. Lewis, do I have a motion to approve from you?
Yes.
Mr. Hall, is there a second?
Sure.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, I'll get those signed.
You guys are in harmony today.
Teamwork. Item 4, introduction of Commissioners Matthews and Peterson. I jumped ahead on that. Ms. Matthews. Patterson is our youth representative, right?
Correct.
Okay.
She did reach out to me by email last week. Said she couldn't make the subcommittee or the transportation focus group meeting that we just had because she's in school, which makes sense. But I did expect her here today, so I don't know. Yeah.
All right. We've already introduced Ms. Matthews, so item 4 is completed. Old business, item 5, transportation projects update. Mr. Hood.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So beginning on page 10 of your packet is the transportation projects update memo. I will just note Pine Avenue, Meridian to Locust Grove. This will be the last time you'll see that in your packet. I'm going to go ahead and remove it since that project is substantially complete and has been now for a little while. So nothing really to change on that one going forward. So it's a complete project. I will just also call to your attention, I added this month, and I hope it's helpful, although you probably wouldn't type in the whole URL, but I added the links to the project website at ACHD where they exist for the project. So if you're looking at the PDF version, you should just be able to click on that and you can go right to the project website. So I did that for several of the projects. I'll also just call out the 2 Linder Road segments, Ustick to McMillan and Cayuse Creek to Chinden. Those are on the 90-day bid list and we'll go out to bid next month. It's anticipated. So those are going to be constructed here this fiscal year. I guess we're into 2019 now, fiscal year. So those projects should be going in construction here hopefully soon. Moving then on to page 13, I think is the next thing I want to call to your attention, US 2026. And actually I'm going to kind of talk about 2026. Well, let me just start there. So right now, or in 20 minutes, there is a public open house happening at the Ambrose School. So maybe we'll get done here a little bit early on your way home if you want to go stop by the Ambrose School. There is an open house to talk about the 2026 corridor, particularly between Star and Eagle Road. So there are several projects there that are in the state's plan and working with developers to do a STAR project or 2 along there to improve that corridor. So if you can after this and you just haven't got enough transportation this afternoon, you can go and hang out there at the Ambrose School. There is some more information on that in the last couple pages of your packet too, the Chinden West stuff. Also, and this is kind of goes together with the Interstate 84 and State Highway 16, but first as it relates to 2026, just last week, no, it was Friday before last, the ITD board voted to advance the first segment, so between Eagle and Locust Grove is in the 2021 STIP, or ITIP. They did vote to use the TECM funds to advance that to 2020. So that's good news that that first 3/4 of a mile is accelerated, and the work on the corridor will begin soon. Some of why that was able to happen, I'm going to flip the page to page 14. So this is some big news. So ITD received some funds. You may have seen this in the news the past couple of months to widen I-84, which frees up some of their other funds, some of their TECM funds and their state funds and some other funds. Well, the board on the 26th then voted to appropriate $90 million for the State Highway 16 corridor. So that will go towards right-of-way acquisition on the corridor. So $6 million this year they're looking at to do further design on the corridor, and then three different funding sources, the $90 million to do right-of-way acquisition shortly thereafter. So again, some trickle-down effects then of coming up with the federal grant to widen the interstate. The state was able to go to some other priorities, and that being the biggest impact is 2026 and 16 in our area for freeing up some other funds. Oh yeah, they're there. So Garvey funds, state funds, and some federal formula funds are what make up that $90 million. So that's good. Still no construction dollars, but it's a step in the right direction. And if we can get corridor preservation, that's huge. So, yeah, that's an update on state facility. So a lot happening just in the last month on the state system. I think, well, just Lime. So maybe a quick update. So on page 15, I really didn't update it much. But we have broken up into some working groups, subcommittees, I don't know what we're calling them. But we are, one small working group of city staff and others is looking at potential ordinance to address e-scooters and e-bikes. I'm actually facilitating a group that's looking at where these could or should be parked on city and ASHD properties, coming up with a design for either painting, striping, signage that have preferred e-scooter, e-bike parking areas on public, quasi-public locations. Another group is working on things about, policy-related things about where they should or shouldn't be ridden. That could be with the ordinance group too, but just some best practices and how we do outreach with the public if it's having exhibits or whatever in the community before the relaunch or what that looks like. So anyways, long story short, there's some folks that are looking with police and legal and planning, parks and others that are really looking at how to roll these out successfully here in the coming months. So just a quick update on that. More to come here in the coming days. So,
Mr. Hood, can I add to your comments there? So earlier today, I had emailed to members of the commission a copy of an article that came across my desk about a class action suit filed in Los Angeles Superior Court just a couple of weeks ago about experiences, at least in one of the cities there in California. I think the article does a good job of at least explaining what the challenges are. It also does, I think, a pretty good job explaining why the lawsuit may not succeed for legal issues. But if you have a minute to take a look at it, I think that it explains what the challenges will be. I think more particularly for each of us having to deal with this issue as it moves forward. So if you take a minute to look at that, I think just a little light reading and help you to understand some of the issues, if you will. Thanks, Caleb.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
try not to pipe in, but maybe a question for either Caleb or Mr. Baird. As I understand, Lime has an MOU with the city. So is there anything that's prohibiting them from operating except for they're trying to accommodate to the request from the city? Have we terminated the MOU? So, help me understand, is it just their voluntary decision to not operate in Meridian right now that's keeping them off our streets?
That's how I understand it, yes. There was a request made that we work together, have a successful relaunch, and they've obliged. I don't think anything is technically prohibiting them from being a good partner with the city. I think that's where we're at today, is they're willing to work with us on trying to be successful as well. But no, I don't think there's anything, again, technically that would prohibit them today from.
Thank you, sorry.
Any other comments on that Lime item?
I have a couple comments.
Mr. Hall?
Work in downtown Boise, right on the Grove, and they're pretty popular downtown, those Lime bikes and Bird bikes that are out there now. The only thing I've noticed is they go fairly fast for the sidewalks, and I think they have the ability to throttle those back. I'm not sure, but it seems like it'd be a good idea for Meridian, and for Boise, that for that matter too. But it just seems like something I want to put out there. So, especially when you have a lot of pedestrians out there.
That's good. I don't think I mentioned it, but I think that is one of the things that, again, either in the potential ordinance subcommittee or the operational subcommittee, it's my understanding too that in Boise, like you come up to the university, it slows them down to like 2 miles an hour, or even throttles them all the way down to off or whatever. So, so they do have some capabilities that way to. It's right around 15 miles an hour is their max speed, but that is pretty quick if you got people walking on a sidewalk. Again, that's part of some of what we're trying to understand. I don't know if Boise's ordinance will fully work for Meridian, or if it's some hybrid or what, but that's good feedback. And I know something that they're capable of doing is in certain areas, if not, throughout the whole community, having the governor that says, 10 miles an hour is as fast. I think that is part of the discussion. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just,
Mr. McKinney.
Caleb, one more thing. It's my understanding, and I don't know if this is something we discussed in our previous meeting or if it's just something I've heard through the grapevine, but is it the case that when Lime deployed the scooters initially, they had their agreement with the city but did not have in place an agreement with ACHD? Is that part of what their problem was?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner McKinney, it's not required. It was certainly kind of to the previous discussion, encouraged to have a license agreement or a master agreement with the Ada County Highway District, just so everyone kind of understands the ground rules. But I don't think they have one in Boise either. I think that is just something with the city of Boise's ordinance kind of controls. In Meridian, that seems to maybe be a better model to have. Now, I'll also let you know, we've talked about that license agreement maybe being with the city. So the city and ACHD having a license agreement, and those parties potentially operating or otherwise being licensed through the city, not through the highway district. Having those understanding the rules of, can you ride them on the sidewalks or not, or bike lanes or not, or whatever wherever the rules lie. So I don't, Mr. Baird may know more than, I don't know, but I don't think they have one with Boise, with ACHD, in Boise, to operate today. So I don't think that is anything that's not the reason that we asked them to halt operations in Meridian jointly with the Ada County Highway District.
Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, I will close item 5A. Item 6A, Sergeant Arnold is at an all-day training, so he is not present today. We'll scratch 6A, move to 6B, Mr. Lancaster, School Zone Committee update.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Chairman. After our October meeting, the school zone subcommittee did meet. We met that week. All of the members of that subcommittee were present. So we had Sergeant Arnold, Ross Oyen from ACHD, Commissioner Lewis, myself, and Miranda. and Caleb was there as his schedule permitted. So this was our second meeting of this subcommittee. We had a little bit more structured meeting this time, I guess. We talked specifically about some school zone standards and about traditions, if you will, why we do the things that we do. And we, so after having a discussion about some of the standards, such as what the speed limit should be in school zones, the length of school zones, where a reduced speed may or may not be appropriate. Those were some of the things that we discussed. We adjourned the meeting and said that we would have some correspondence outside of a meeting, so email and that sort of correspondence that Commissioner Lewis and I need to get back to. We didn't want to have another meeting immediately or schedule another one because when we formed this subcommittee, we said that the meetings were going to be periodic. So that's where we left off. So in the future, you can look forward to us bringing back some information and perhaps recommendations about some general school zone standards, if you will, and perhaps some specific school zone concerns and some resolutions as they come up. So that's my report, but I'm open to any questions.
Do we have any comments, questions, curiosities for Mr. Lancaster?
Yeah, or anything that Commissioner Lewis wants to add, or Miranda, or Caleb. If they remember the meeting being completely different than I remember it.
Well, hearing none, I will close item 6B then. 6C, Meridian Comprehensive Plan Update Memo attached. Mr. Hood.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Page 16 is the memo update. I won't read this to you, and for those of you that were in the last meeting, I apologize for some of you having to hear this again, some of it anyways. So the city did just recently complete phase 2 of the comprehensive plan. I was going to take you to the website and just kind of show you what the website looks like real quick. So this is meridiancity.org/comp plan. This is the landing page for our website. There are some places that you can go and place your ideas. So this idea wall, real similar, so I'm not going to go through all of them, but there's some idea wall, and then there's a map that has a pin that you can also, here. So you can pin your ideas too in the city somewhere if you thought it'd be a good idea for something, and some of them are aggregated. Let's see what this one says. So South Meridian, so that was some of the things with our consultant in South Meridian. Our consultant had difficulty in South Meridian, it's just growing so fast, and the mapping that they were using is woefully out of date, and we've tried to get them to use our GIS system. But anyways, we'll try this one, see if there's anything there. Nothing. That's your home. Anyways, you can go on here and drop comments, thoughts. Some of them are more viable than others. But anyway, so there's that tool as well. But we just entered phase 3, and as I mentioned before, we're going to be getting a little technical for the next several months. Phase 1 was values, phase 2 is vision, phase 3 is about opportunities and choices. So we don't have a survey, unlike the first couple phases, we don't have a survey with this phase. We're breaking up and kind of getting a little more technical on housing, transportation, economic development, and then amenities, open space, that type of thing. So after the first of the year, we're actually going to be doing some things, though, during December with some of the Christmas festivities and some of the parades and fun runs and those types of things. We're going to be at some of those events trying to outreach to people and get them to participate. See if I can find the vision document here. Should have looked at this first before. We don't have it uploaded yet. A couple weeks ago, the council, not quite 2 weeks ago, I guess, the council did sign off on the vision document. I thought that was on our website, but it doesn't look like it's currently uploaded just yet. But you see a summary of the meat of that vision document, the My Meridian vision. As I mentioned in the last meeting, there are 5 themes and then supporting statements below those themes that were composed largely from the feedback and community input that staff received at these events throughout the summer, as well as the steering committee kind of tweaking some of those and presenting the vision document to the council again last week. So that'll be used kind of as not a guide, but just sort of a tool to be used as we check in on some of the things we're doing, developing policies and changes to our map for the comp plan going forward. So that vision document is going to be a nice tool to have. Again, I'm sorry, bless you. I'm sorry that it's not on our website just yet, but it will be soon. So again, since a majority of you were at the last focus group meeting, I don't know that we need to spend too much on that. The idea is to complete this project by the end of next year, before the end of next year, so roughly a year from today, have it adopted. So we've got a lot of work still to do in the next 6 months to get a plan together, to put it out there to the community, and get their blessing on it, essentially, before taking it through the adoption process. I don't really have anything else to add on the comprehensive plan unless there are any questions. I'll probably do another, for those of you that weren't able to attend our 2 p.m. meeting, probably do just a quick summary probably next month, because that'll be the wrap up. Hopefully you all can join us. You're all invited. So if you can join us, that's great. You are the core of that focus group, obviously, with some other add-ins from transportation agencies and the development community. So you're all, if you weren't able to attend today, please join us in a couple of weeks. So with that, Mr. Chair, sorry that's not much of an update, but if you have any questions on it or want, I can talk some more about the comp plan for sure. So.
Any comments, questions for Mr. Hood? Lancaster, you're on the verge of a...
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'm just wondering if, well, we were given some homework here at the meeting before this meeting on the comprehensive plan. I'm wondering if it would be useful for you or Mr. Hood to, I guess, let the rest of the commission that may not have been able to make the meeting know what, you know, our task is there or our homework is for 2 weeks from now, and yeah, I guess just a quick bring up to speed that way.
I think Commissioner Hall walked in just about as we were wrapping up, so I don't know if he got all of that or not. He does have the packet, so that was emailed to everybody. So if you want to look at the goals, objectives, and action items, I can't remember the page numbers, and I put it back in my office now, but it's about 4 or 5 pages of policy statements. But any comments you have on those, please send them to me by the close of business next Wednesday, so 10 days from today, and then I'll incorporate those and send those back out to the group, and we'll discuss those in 2 weeks. That's the 19th at 2 p.m. here in this room. We'll set up something a little more roundtable style, kind of more informal than our last meeting. We'll figure out something, a couple of tables or whatever.
Could we meet in the conference rooms in the foyer, the A and B?
We might be able to do that. I've already got this room reserved, but it might just be setting up a couple of folding tables and putting maybe 3 folding tables. But yeah, we'll figure that out. It'll generally be in this vicinity somewhere. It might be in conference room A or B. I think everybody else was here. I know Carl Miller was here, so I won't go through it for Lisa, but everybody else. And I heard that, so
guess I didn't realize only Commissioner Hall was the only one. I should have looked around the room first, so sorry to put you on the spot there, Commissioner Hall. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. You're welcome, yeah.
We good to go on item 6C? Okay. Item 6D, staff communications. Looks like we had about 2 letters.
So, Mr. Chair, page 18 are the relevant communications I thought I'd share. The first one is just to, and I'll add it, I think, under future meeting topics. Maybe work with you in the coming weeks to come up with our 2018 annual report, and then either have that on the December agenda or the January agenda, kind of depending on how much progress we make in the next month or so on that. And then I'll also be working with you on a date in February, March that you might be available to come and present that to the council, or we'll have a new chairman by then. So that might be something for the new chair, or I don't know how you guys want to work that, but someone to come and present our annual report to the council just after the first of the year. But I'll get with you on both development of the annual year-end report as well as looking at calendar. Verbally present that report to the council. The other thing I'll call to your attention, I mean, you can read all the correspondences in there. Is on the very back page, just to let you know, Brian is going to officially replace Rhonda Jalbert, just after you got her name figured out how to pronounce it. You got Parker, so you can probably get that there. But Brian Parker is going to replace Rhonda Jalbert. I did talk with Ted today, or had an email correspondence anyways, and for the ex officio members, we're okay just kind of swapping them out. It is the folks that vote, you all, that do need to be appointed by the council, but Brian is going to take her on the spot, so going forward.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Lancaster.
I may ask, since we're talking about ex officio musical chairs, I'm curious, Mr. Chairman, if Mr. Wasdall is staying on, or if Mr. Price in attendance here is taking over that responsibility.
I believe Mr. Wasdall is still planning on being just on vacation.
Okay. Well, you're both invited, I guess.
Were you trying to work a trade, Mr. Lancaster? I mean,
I don't know. Just curious.
Price for Wasdall and a draft pick to be named later.
Yeah, something along those lines.
maybe just trying to expand the staff. Yeah, okay. All right. So then, any further comment, Mr. Hood, on the 2 communications?
I have a question on the notes. The item discussed during the city council workshop is that the Rocky Mount High School walk path that the district owns and the neighborhood wants to put a fence gate on. That's being discussed.
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Carson. So I did highlight that on page 20 because I did tell you that I would circle back when that would be discussed at council. So that is on the draft agenda for next Tuesday's city council workshop. I spelled council wrong. Sorry about that. Council. So there'll be those 2 items will be discussed, both the potential compression brake ordinance, or maybe unmuffled compression brake ordinance, will be discussed, as well as the topic is not going to be closing the pathway. It's going to be more about what this commission recommended to the council to consider was a residential parking district. So we'll talk about the potential to stand up a new division, if you will, of police. Maybe it's code enforcement, whatever, but what that really would look like if we're going to do parking enforcement in residential areas. That was kind of what this group recommended to the council, was to consider.
I just wanted to make sure we were represented if it was about how property needed to be gated off.
Yeah, no, it wouldn't be. I will let you know, though, and to the rest of the commission, there is still a faction of Paramount that would like to close that micropath connection to the south side of the high school. I don't know I don't have that crystal ball. I don't know how much of that's going to be discussed on Tuesday, but there is a portion of those people that live nearby that would like to still pursue that avenue. But the way it's on the agenda is to discuss, and again, the direction from this commission was to solve the problem by establishing a, similar to the North End in Boise or some other places that permitted parking in a residential area, correct? So if anyone wants to attend, that meeting starts at 3 o'clock. The agenda has not been published yet, so I don't know exactly when those items will be discussed by council, but if you're curious or want to participate in that, that will be next Tuesday afternoon sometime, so you can catch the agenda and participate or watch it online or whatever you want to do. Thank you for, I meant to highlight that too. I even had it dog-eared and I totally spaced it, so thank you.
Mr.
Hood, when will that agenda be published?
Friday. I can guarantee it by Friday afternoon. A lot of times it's out by Friday around noon, but if you check, you know.
I was checking my calendar. I have an Idaho Transportation Association board meeting at 10 o'clock in Jerome. May or may not be able to get back by the 3 o'clock meeting, but
So, Mr. Chair, if I can, just a little bit. I did have a meeting with our attorney's office as well as our police department since then, since your meeting and this meeting, and just kind of give them a heads up, and we talked about it a little bit. This meeting really is going to get further direction from the council. Is this something where we want to go, you know, is there any appetite for this? If so, staff, go do more work. Go figure out what this draft ordinance looks like. Go figure out what it would take to stand up a parking division for residential districts. This isn't, we don't have it ready to give to them. Here's the ordinance that would prohibit compression brakes. It's really, before we go to that level of effort, understand if council wants us to pursue this or not. So there will be opportunity. I still have your note with a contact for you to be involved, particularly regarding the compression brake issue. If council says go pursue this, I would like to take you up on your offer to be part of that group that potentially drafts an ordinance. But again, just to be clear, this is more of a workshop to figure out if there's any momentum behind either one or both of these things. And it'll probably be some time before we actually bring those back to council for adoption.
And I did submit some items today via email on some research on compression brake ordinances and some experiences. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Hood?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
So regarding those emails that you sent today with information about compression brake ordinances, so I'll admit that you overwhelmed me a little bit today, but I'm interested in I guess a summary of, executive summary, if you will, of what it was that you found and sent.
First item that caught my interest is federal law that set noise standards for trucks coming out of the factories. So there's already a decibel level. And with the federal-state relationships, federal law says you cannot, or as I read that comment, the city couldn't absolutely prohibit the use of jake brakes or compression brakes. However, you can regulate the noise. And I also got from those comments that maybe the larger issue is those folks who have not kept them repaired or have disabled them or running other equipment. In a couple of the articles, it talks about, in some of the ordinances that I looked at, says use is restricted except in emergencies. And then there was at least one article on, you say, yes, I had to use the brake because I needed to stop. There's a school bus there, okay? And it still comes back to an enforcement issue. How are you going to measure that decibel level and get a case that you take in front of a judge? But the short of it is, and there's various ordinances around that say the use is prohibited except in an emergency. That's what I took from those. Totally ban them. That goes, because you're taking away a tool
Yeah,
to stop.
a legal tool,
Right.
yeah.
So it's a matter of regulation, I believe.
Well, thank you, that's helpful.
Any other comments on the, Mr. Hood, do we want to address the comment or the letter on Bellotta Court? Hearing none? Okay. That brings us through item 6D. Any other items, new business? We approved the agenda, but has been our practice, that doesn't stop us from bringing something else up. Future meeting topics, potential truck routes, 2018 end-of-year report, Linder Village project update, master mobility map, comprehensive plan update, local jurisdiction on state highways. Any thoughts on adding to our future meeting topics?
Mr. Chairman, I
Mr. Lancaster,
have one,
just one
just one.
today?
So this kind of goes along with the 2018 end-of-year report, but I think by ordinance or bylaw or both, we need to do elections in January.
Okay,
So that would be a future meeting topic. And, Mr. Chairman, if you should choose not to rerun as chairman, I'll remind the commission that we have a precedent that the vice chairman often moves into the role of chairman. And just as a reminder, Commissioner Lewis is our vice chairman, and he mentioned before the meeting that he is willing to participate in any way that we ask him to.
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe I said that.
well, Mr. Lancaster, I don't think I control how the ballot box comes out. If you choose to elevate Mr. Lewis. But very good, I appreciate that, and Mr. Lewis, we appreciate your anxiousness.
Indeed.
Your concession to take the reins. Any other items?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Not another item, but maybe just to update everybody if you haven't heard. And it's been on the future meeting topics, although it was really an old business item, is the Linder Village project update. So they did resubmit to us this last week. So just wanted to, maybe it was 2 weeks ago now. Just wanted to let you know they do have a new plan that has been submitted and is scheduled for hearing before our Planning and Zoning Commission. This is actually to update you after it's done, but just wanted to let you know that that is in process. So if you want to participate at the Planning and Zoning Commission or City Council or whatever, those are coming up. So.
Very good.
One other comment I had to.
Mr. Hall, excuse me.
And it looks like the city council approved the new Owyhee High School. And I know that was recommended for not being approved by Caleb's group. So maybe Miranda can be ahead of some potential traffic issues out there that we can address with Mr. Lancaster's subgroup. I know we're still obviously a couple years away from that school, but better to be ahead.
Good idea.
We got anything else to bring up? Our next meeting is December 3rd, 3:30. I have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Seconded.
Second.
All in favor? We're out of here.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
If nominated, I will not accept. If elected, I will not serve.
In the redesign?
Isn't that how it goes?
Nice.
That's right.
Thank you.
Walkable place like building. That's what I'd like to see. So there are a couple different folks. My small area, our walkable area over there. So I've seen where you're those kind of walkable areas show you that theater or your it shows small, but it's not director or the mayor's office on staff. You can't make it go because you don't have enough critical mass. But if you bring everything together, you generate a little bit of that ordinary retail places that want to survive. When you look at it, it's really just a.
It looks like they reversed it, though, because most of the strip malls, the building office, their back office street is part of that. It looks like they flipped it in this case, so it would be more visual appeal from the outside.
We would want them, we would ask them to flip it. And unless they've changed it the last.
The last time I saw, they had the buildings out on the shindig.
A lot of small buildings.
Yeah.
So it's like it's like a restaurant here, there's a gas station here. They're not coming, but they're all spread out.
How do you envision truck routes to go down? Because that may be something for next month, but I'm not quite sure how to kick that off or facilitate that or.
So they'll drive to.
I've asked the EPA, their research, American Truck Association,
someplace like.
they were the ones that provided
Like say the grocery store's in the middle of it.
these documents there.
I saw your one online today, but I haven't been back on my email since like 1:30 today.
Let's go to this place.
It played out, I got behind the 8 we pulled off this morning. Which is out. Mine's just interesting.
Slightly
Well, a lot of
Yeah, no, I saw that one, I just haven't seen yours.
Oh,
That's why I don't know how to.
All right, so that's a little bit there, waiting to get, I asked the research.
developers seem to think that, landscaping and trees are a buffer between, residential property and commercial.
And
Buffering needs to be other buildings, like professional office building, things that have a lowering use. And a physical barrier between
this, I can also probably make those rules. Once in a while, I have this compression brake bill, you put in compression brake.
They're a 24-hour-a-day operation,
Pull up all kinds.
and you're gonna have trucks.
So I think maybe,
Every night.
give me a deadline, let's respond to this.
Well, I'd like to have something in the next 2 or 3 weeks, that way it gives me time to put it in a memo and get it in the packet.
Yeah, okay. So I'll have something to do. I'll just.
I'm only another.
Give or take, right?
Yeah.
For,
Here's the meeting.
oh, thank you, yes. It's weird, because I have, this is spelled right there, I don't know, I think, spell check.
Spell checker, it's like, it's like your, Twitter, you're not your Twitter feeds, but your text.
Yeah, it's autocorrect.
Autocorrect.
6 a.m.